Welcome everyone back to the shop. I have been itching to get back on the B-25. I've been busy doing some other things, which I will probably get to share with you guys pretty soon. First thing I want to do is talk about Christmas. I love Christmas. Christmas is a great time of year. I love giving gifts, and my wife has given me some pretty great ones over the years. This year, she didn't give me any planes. I got 2 items that are airplane related, but they are not airplanes themselves. They're more like tools. First one, and I'll touch more on why I need this in a different video, but this is a tachometer. I kind of need this for a project. I'll get to that one later. The other thing that I needed were these. And again, this is for another project. It's not for this one, but I needed a pair. I didn't have a pair. They weren't that much money. So she got them for me because I told her, hey, those would be really nice to have. For those who are unfamiliar, these are not scissors. These are pinking shears. So they cut little zigzags. And in another video, I'll let you know why I need these. So if you haven't had the opportunity to give something back to this hobby, I highly recommend that you do. Pass on knowledge, pass on an airplane, pass on a battery, charge someone's battery for it. Give back to the hobby. It's a great way to go. So I need to then cover what I have been doing on this model in the interim since we last spoke. So the Mitchell has this really cool belly pan that goes on. It's like for helping to get the wings on and off. And in my particular case, I needed to redo this anyway, because if you recall, there was damage on this. So this has now been glassed, and I filled the weave. And this is not primer. This is the final belly gray. It's like a slate gray or something. It's a matte color. It's not glossy. But yeah, I wanted to do like an enamel, especially on the bottom. Because it's going to take more abuse on the bottom. There's going to be wet and things like that. And an enamel is just going to hold up a lot better than like a latex with a clear coat over top. It just will. Take my word for it. I fly my models. I fly them a lot. So yeah, here's the belly pan. It's done. It's basically done. There's going to be a trim line where there's going to be a green that goes across it, but we won't do that until we get into the final painting. But light colors paint first, and believe this is the light color. The other thing I need to talk about is this. So this is the horizontal stabilizer, and the vertical stabilizers and all of the control surfaces. It's all covered at this point, and I painted the bottom too. So the bottom is gray and everything else is green. So when I get to the green, I will mask everything off and paint the green. Yeah, so this is ready to go. This is ready to actually be reinstalled onto the model, and I can do the painting separately. That's not a problem either. So cool. Yeah, nice to have this done. Okay, so let's get to what's on the bench. We have the fuselage. The fuselage has been completely stripped, as you can see. You're not blind, especially because you're watching a YouTube video. If you are blind, I'm so terribly sorry that this will be just not very relevant to you. But I have completely stripped all of the covering off, and in addition to that, I've made a couple of repairs. There have been some wood repairs that I had to do. On the other side, yeah, so we had a switch that used to be here, a switch panel for the receiver. That is no longer there. I had to fill that in. And then on the bottom down here, this is where the air inlet and gauge used to be. They used to be down here. And it was on this soft balsa, and it just kept wallowing out. It was bad location. I would not have put it there. I think it's a good thought to put it down there because it's out of the way for scale looks, but not a good place. In addition to that, I've gone through the entire air system and done some service and maintenance. I did have one of the set screws for the Robart red valve. It was a little bit too loose. Somehow it had gotten a little messed up, so had to service that so I didn't have a massive air leak. Other than that, you know, things are pretty well set. I went through and did a whole bunch of spackling, as you can see from all, you know, the dust. But I did a whole bunch of spot spackling and blending and just overall maintenance on this piece because, well, it really needed it. But we're to the point where we're glassing. Now the glass work is really straightforward. I mean, I'm not really going to cover how to glass because it really is straightforward. Like, you take the glass cloth, put it on the model, and then I'm using sanding sealer. This is my method. The airplane is strong enough. You don't need to add any strength to the model. At this point, we're making a really nice surface to paint, okay? You could possibly do that on the wood itself, but the wood expands and contracts, right? If you seal one side of the wood, the other side is open. This isn't a floor, so the sanding sealer is not going to do a whole tremendous amount for us. So we are reinforcing that wood with a surface that will hopefully have it all bind and stick together using the fiberglass cloth. So I'm excited about this because I have an even newer version of how I do the surface finishing. So let me get the cloth applied, and then I'll go through and talk about the following steps to fill the weave and so forth. Well, the time lapse did not cover the entire glassing of the fuselage because it's all pretty much the same. But you get the idea. It's really just put the cloth down and apply and dry. And that's really all there is to it. The next step is you need to do a rub down. I am going to use roughly around 100 grit sandpaper. You're just trying to get the smooth out of this. So when you apply the sanding sealer, it kind of wants to settle kind of smooth, and you just want to rough it up because you want the surface adhesion, that mechanical adhesion that I've talked about on the channel before. We're not relying solely on the chemical process of the sanding sealer, so this really doesn't take long. You just got to do a whole rub down, and then we'll get to the next point. After rubbing everything down to a nice dull finish, I mean, you can see that there's still a little bit of gloss here, but it's for the most part very dull, matte looking. It should feel kind of rough. That's what you want. You're not looking to make things perfectly smooth yet. That's what the next step is for. So we've taken a volume of the sanding sealer and put it in the cup, and then we've taken 1.5 roughly times the same volume. I really just eyeball it every time. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to mix this. All right. Okay, so at this point you can see about the consistency. Okay, it's like, okay, you know, you brush your teeth and there's that foam that comes out of your face. and you drip it all over yourself and you say, hey baby, you want a kiss? Yeah, that's the consistency you're looking for. It's not quite thick, but it's not thin either. I mean, it's pourable. You can see that it like moves around, but it doesn't really slosh inside the cup, okay? You're trying to thicken it with the micro balloons, okay? And these are just very basic micro balloons off of Amazon. Nothing fancy, okay? And this is just a leftover piece of push rod and a plastic cup. Okay, guys, we're not... This is not rocket science. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're just taking like all of these little tiny indentations in the glass and we're trying to fill those up. Okay, so we're going to do one coat of this stuff. Just one single coat. And then we're going to come back. All right, here we are. All right, it's still kind of soft. It's gonna be. So if you were to try to put an additional layer, you'd end up kind of pulling up some of the thicker layers. And that's not what you want. You want it to just have this one thin layer, but to the point where if you get real close, it's really difficult to see the weave anymore. Like this is probably the thinnest part right here, but it's full. It's full. It's okay. So I've left the overage and everything on it because we can clean that up later. What we're going to do is leave this overnight. Yes, we're going to leave it overnight, mostly because I have other things that I want to do. And this was about an hour's worth of work. That's plenty of time in the shop for me. I can move on to other things with my family. And frankly, I need to clean up anyway. But you notice I did this in a pretty nice shirt. It's not terribly messy. There's no noxious fumes. It's really that easy. So we're going to come back to this later and I'll pick up the next steps. All right, so we're in the next day here. I'm using some basic sand pads from Walmart. They're medium. That's all it says, medium. Doesn't say what the grit is, but around 150, 200 will be fine for this application. You're just trying to knock back the brush strokes that you've put on there with the filler and try to make it as smooth as possible. You really want to go through and be as thorough as you possibly can to make sure that it's as smooth as you possibly can. This is the time to make things flat. From here, you want to make sure that not only are you blowing off all the dust, but you brush it off. Use a dry brush and brush it off before you add a layer of sanding sealer. The sanding sealer, the additional layer of that is going to help pull everything together, make it nice and uniform across the finish, and that way you'll have something additionally to sand after you dry it. Now I am going to go ahead and start sanding right after I dry with a hairdryer because it's still pretty soft and pliable. Save myself a little bit of work. I'm already in my dirty clothes. So that's what you're seeing here. It's all very straightforward and methodical, and you can repeat this step multiple times to try to get an even smoother finish if you'd like to. Well, that's it for today's video, guys. I really appreciate you stopping by the shop, and I just love giving back to this hobby. It's a real pleasure of mine to have this format, to be able to present to you some of the things that I've learned. So make sure that you guys are taking it and passing it on as well. In addition, if you like some of the things that you've seen, go ahead and support this hobby as well by supporting those who manufacture parts for this hobby. Dubro.com is a wonderful place to pick up some of those pieces of hardware, little things that you just need to do builds. As an additional incentive, there's always my code JOSH10 for a 10% discount in your cart at checkout. Head on over there. Those guys are great. And until next time, keep building and working on your flying works of art.